Thank you for being an incredible supporter of the 10X podcast group, the home of the skillful art of manipulation. We're thrilled to have you as part of our growing community. If you haven't already, we'd love for you to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your likes and comments mean the world to us and help us reach a wider audience with our stories. Plus, with new episodes released every day, your feedback plays a vital role in shaping what we create. It truly makes a difference. Your loyalty and enthusiasm fuel our passion for crafting gripping tales, and we're so grateful for your support. Today, we're excited to present The Sugar Baby Trap, a story that promises to keep you on the edge of your seat. Let's dive into this thrilling narrative together. Chapter 1. The Setup. There's a particular kind of man that falls for a girl like me, older, powerful, convinced he's untouchable. The kind who walks into a room and expects it to shift around him. The kind who takes what he wants without asking because he's spent his entire life being told yes. The kind who sees a young woman like me and assumes I exist solely for his pleasure. Robert Langston was one of those men. I knew it from the second I saw him, standing at the bar in that dimly lit lounge, his posture relaxed but possessive, his fingers loosely wrapped around a short glass of whiskey. An expensive brand, I was sure. His suit was tailored, the dark fabric hugging his broad shoulders perfectly. The kind of cut only worn by men who were used to boardrooms, private jets, and commanding respect. And I knew, just as surely as I knew my own name, that he was going to be mine. Not in the way he expected. Not in the way any of the other girls who eyed him hungrily in that bar imagined. Because this wasn't about sex. Not for me. This wasn't about playing the role of the eager, starry-eyed sugar baby desperate for an allowance. This was about revenge. I tilted my head slightly, letting my long, dark hair fall over one shoulder, exposing just enough skin to suggest an invitation. I could feel his gaze land on me, the weight of it burning against my exposed collarbone. Men like Robert liked to think they were hunters, that they were the ones choosing who to take to bed. But in reality, they were the easiest prey. I let the moment stretch out, let the tension build, before finally glancing up at him. My lips parted slightly, just enough to make him wonder if he had interrupted a private thought, just enough to give him an opening. It worked. A few minutes later, he was beside me, his voice rich and smooth, filled with the kind of arrogance only wealth and experience can buy. "You look like you're waiting for someone," he said, setting his glass down on the bar, his eyes scanning me slowly, deliberately, as if he was already imagining how I'd look in his bed. I smiled, small, shy, but just a little wicked. The kind of smile that invited curiosity. "Maybe I am." He chuckled, shaking his head slightly. "Then they must be the stupidest man alive to leave you sitting here alone." I let my fingers trail along the rim of my own drink, pretending to consider his words. Maybe I'm the one who likes to be pursued. And just like that, the first hook was in. Robert wasn't used to being the one chasing. Men like him were used to women throwing themselves at their feet, hoping for a chance to taste the luxury he could offer. But I had learned a long time ago that power wasn't about who had the money. It was about who had control. And in that moment, I controlled everything. He leaned in slightly, drawn in by the unspoken challenge between us. I could see it in the way his fingers flexed against the bar top, the way his breathing deepened just a little. He wanted to own me. He just didn't know that I had already owned him from the moment he saw me. I let the conversation flow naturally, or at least that's how I made it seem. I laughed at the right moments, asked the right questions, let him talk about himself just enough to stroke his ego, but not so much that he felt like he was doing all the work. Men like Robert wanted to feel interesting, desired, needed, so I let him believe I needed him. "Do you always talk to strange men in bars?" he asked after a while, his voice thick with amusement. I tilted my head, biting my lips slightly before answering. "Only the ones who look like they might be able to ruin me." His eyes darkened. There it was. The exact moment he decided he wanted me. I saw it in the way he shifted closer, in the way his gaze dropped to my lips, in the way he exhaled just a little slower than before. "Ruin you," he repeated, his voice quieter now, more intimate. I leaned in, letting my breath brush against his jaw as I whispered, "Isn't that what men like you do best?" His fingers brushed against my knee, the touch so light it could have been accidental. But it wasn't. And I smiled, because Robert Langston had no idea that he was the one who had just been caught. The first night was always the most important. The first encounter, the first conversation, it set the stage for everything that came next. If you did it right, you could weave a spell so tight that your target wouldn't even realize they were tangled until it was too late. I let him take me to dinner, let him buy me champagne, and feed me compliments laced with promises of luxury and indulgence. I laughed at his jokes, touched his arm at just the right moments, let him think he was winning me over. And when he finally leaned in, his voice low and full of hunger, and asked, "Can I see you again?" I didn't say yes immediately. I let the moment stretch, let uncertainty flicker across his face. And then with a soft, secret smile, I whispered, "I'd like that." I had him. And he had no idea that his entire life was about to unravel at my hands. Chapter 2, Seduction and Submission. It started the way all affairs do, with a game. A slow, calculated push and pull of tension. A dance of glances that lingered a little too long. A casual touch that held just a second too much pressure. Every interaction with Robert was a careful performance, designed to make him feel like he was the one drawing me in. Like I was the innocent, wide-eyed college girl falling helplessly for the charm of a seasoned, powerful man. But I wasn't helpless. And Robert was far from powerful. The real power belonged to me, the one who could mold herself into whatever fantasy he desired. And right now, he wanted the illusion of submission. He wanted me soft and pliable, hanging on to his every word, eager to please him, desperate for his approval. And I gave him exactly that. The first time he took me to a hotel, he was cautious. Not because he felt guilt, not in the way a decent man would. No, Robert's concern was for himself, for his reputation, for the risk. He was the kind of man who had built an empire on ruthlessness and discretion, and he had no intention of letting his own desires be the thing that brought him down. That's why I had to make him feel like I was worth the risk. So when he pulled up to the entrance of the Grand Sterling Hotel, one of those 5-star places with marble floors and chandeliers worth more than my entire college tuition, I bit my lip, feigning nervousness. "You okay?" he asked, voice low, thick with anticipation. I nodded, glancing at him from beneath my lashes. I've never done this before. A lie, of course. But men like Robert liked to believe they were the first to corrupt something pure. That they were the ones shaping you, breaking you in. He exhaled slowly, his fingers tightening around the steering wheel. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to, Ava." I turned to him, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. Then, in the softest voice, I whispered, "But I want to." His restraint snapped. The valet barely had time to open his door before he was out of the car, coming around to my side, his hand reaching for mine. His grip was firm, possessive, and as we stepped inside the hotel, I felt the shift. I wasn't Ava, the broke college student, anymore. I was his. Or at least, that's what I let him believe. The elevator ride was silent, thick with tension. His fingers brushed against the bare skin of my wrist. A small, seemingly insignificant touch, but I felt the way his breath hitched. The way his other hand flexed at his side, as if resisting the urge to pull me closer. Good. Let him want. Let him crave. Let him drown in it. By the time we reached the suite, because of course he had booked the penthouse, he was unraveling. His control, his carefully constructed composure, was slipping through his fingers. And I made sure to push him over the edge. I stepped inside first, letting out a breath as I took in the room. It was extravagant, all warm lighting and sleek modern furniture. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the glittering city skyline below, and a bottle of chilled champagne sat waiting on the table, as if this were some kind of fucking romantic getaway. I turned to face him, letting my fingers graze the hem of my dress. "This place is beautiful," I murmured, shifting my weight slightly, so that the fabric of my dress rode up just enough to reveal a sliver of lace underneath. Robert's jaw tightened. He closed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hands finding my waist, his grip just firm enough to make me inhale sharply. I let my body mold into his, tilting my head to look up at him, wide-eyed, waiting. That was all it took. His lips crashed against mine, hungry, desperate. I let out a small sound, a mix between a gasp and a whimper, because I knew he wanted me to. He wanted to feel like he was taking something, conquering something. I let him. Let him explore, let him press me against the wall, let him grab my hips like he owned them. His hands roamed, mapping my body with a greed that only came from years of pent-up restraint. But the thing about men like Robert? They didn't just want passion. They wanted obedience. They wanted to be the one in control. The first time he told me to get on my knees, I hesitated. Not because I was unwilling, but because I needed him to see it. That little flicker of innocence. The wariness. The slow, shaky nod that made it seem like I was stepping into something I wasn't quite ready for. It made him groan. "Ava," he murmured, his hand tilting my chin up, forcing me to look at him. "You sure?" I swallowed hard, then nodded. "Yes, sir. That did it." The rest of the night was a blur of hands and lips, moans and whispered demands. He wanted to break me, wanted to see me unravel beneath him. And I gave him that illusion. I clung to him, whimpering when he touched me, gasping when he whispered filth into my ear. I let him guide me, mold me, shape me into whatever fantasy he wanted. And when it was over, when he collapsed beside me, sated and spent, I curled against him, pressing a soft kiss to his jaw. "I don't want this to be just one night," I murmured, voice laced with just enough vulnerability to make his protective instincts kick in. He exhaled slowly, pulling me closer. "It won't be." I smiled against his skin. Because I had just secured my place in his life. And soon I would destroy it. Chapter 3. The Wife and the Web. Olivia Langston. I had studied her long before I ever set my sights on Robert. Before I ever walked into that bar, before I let him think he was seducing me. She was my real target, my endgame. Robert was just the tool. She was a woman who exuded power in the way she carried herself. Sharp eyes, always calculating, always assessing. The kind of woman who knew exactly how much her time was worth, and never wasted it. The kind of woman who expected the world to move when she spoke. She was also the woman who ruined my mother's life. When Olivia Langston fired my mother from Langston Enterprises, she hadn't just taken away her job. She had taken away her dignity. 1 minute, my mother had been the head of the design department for Langston's luxury brand, a woman who had poured decades into the company, who had given everything to make them successful. And the next, disgraced. Tossed out like garbage over some bullshit accusation of mismanagement. An accusation that, as I later discovered, was nothing more than a cover-up for Olivia's decision to replace my mother with a younger, more visionary executive. She hadn't cared about the aftermath. Hadn't cared that my mother lost everything. That we lost everything. But I cared. And now it was Olivia's turn to lose. The first step was to plant the seed of doubt. It had to be slow, subtle. If I moved too fast, if I made it too obvious, she would catch on. She would see the cracks forming and patch them up before I had the chance to break them wide open. No, I had to make it natural. I started with perfume. Just a faint trace of something unfamiliar on Robert's collar. The kind that lingered after a night of sin. The kind a wife would catch a whiff of and wonder, but not be sure. Then I left a single lipstick stain on the inside of his suit jacket. Not on his shirt, not on his neck. No, that would be too obvious. It had to be somewhere subtle, somewhere that wouldn't be seen right away, somewhere that would make Olivia wonder just how long it had been there. And when she started to wonder, when she started to look at him with narrowed eyes and stiff shoulders, I escalated. A text message. Just one. Sent late at night when I knew he was home. Last night was unforgettable. I can't stop thinking about you. Of course, I knew he wouldn't see it right away. He had a habit of leaving his phone unattended while he showered, while he slept. And Olivia? She had a habit of checking. The next morning, Robert called me, his voice tight. "You can't text me things like that, Ava." Olivia almost saw. I bit my lip, feigning innocence. "I'm sorry, I miss you." Silence. Then a low sigh. "I miss you too, baby. But we have to be careful." I smiled. "We." The moment a man starts using words like we, he's already gone. The next time we met, I made sure to leave a little more behind. A lace thong, tucked neatly under the passenger seat of his car. A single earring, left on the floor of his office. And then, when I knew she was at one of her charity galas, I called him. I let it ring twice before hanging up. Enough to register as a missed call. Enough to make her wonder. Later that night, he texted me. "Olivia's acting weird. I think she knows something." I pretended to be concerned. "What do we do?" "Nothing. She'll drop it. She always does." Arrogant fool. Men like Robert always think their wives are blind, that their power protects them. But the truth is, Olivia had never been blind. She was just waiting. It took 3 weeks before Olivia confronted him. It happened during a dinner party at their house, some elegant event filled with powerful people. Senators, CEOs, socialites. The kind of people who mattered. The kind of people Robert couldn't afford to look weak in front of. And Olivia chose that moment to strike. "Who is she?" she asked, her voice low, controlled. Robert barely blinked. "What are you talking about?" She took a sip of wine, eyes locked onto his. "Don't insult me, Robert. I know you're fucking someone." A few of the guests nearby fell into awkward silence, pretending not to hear but very much listening. Robert forced a laugh, shaking his head. "Olivia, stop. You're being ridiculous." I found the earring. His fingers curled around his glass. "Earring?" She tilted her head. "Don't play dumb. The one in your office." The lace underwear in your car. A pause. The text. His jaw clenched. You went through my phone? Are you seriously trying to turn this on me? She snapped, her voice finally rising. Do you think I'm stupid? A tense silence fell over the table. And for the first time since I met Robert, I saw fear in his eyes. He had underestimated his wife. Good, because that was exactly what I wanted. By the time Robert left their house that night, he was a wreck. He called me from his car, voice hoarse. She knows, Ava. I feigned worry. What did she say? She didn't say everything, but she said enough. He exhaled sharply. Fuck. If this gets out, if she takes this public. It won't, I murmured, voice soft. I won't let it. I could hear his breathing slow, steadying. He needed reassurance. He needed to believe that I was on his side. That I wasn't just some young plaything who would ruin his life. And that was the moment I took my final step. Maybe we should tell her, I whispered. He inhaled sharply. What? I hesitated, as if struggling to say it. I mean, what if we just came clean? What if we told her we love each other? Silence. And then a slow exhale. I could feel the gears turning in his mind. The idea was absurd, impossible, but also tempting. Because for the first time in his life, Robert was trapped. He was powerless. And the thought of choosing to come forward, of owning his mistake instead of being caught, must have felt like the lesser evil. Ava, he started, voice strained. I cut him off with a whisper. Tell me you don't love me. He didn't answer. Because he couldn't. And just like that, Robert Langston, the powerful CEO, the man who built his fortune on control and strategy, was mine. Exactly where I wanted him. Exactly where Olivia could destroy him. And she would. Because I was going to make sure of it. Chapter 4. Cracks in the Marriage. Robert thought he could fix things. That was his first mistake. Men like him, wealthy, arrogant, accustomed to having the world bend at their command, always believed that everything could be controlled, every mess cleaned up, every mistake covered with enough money and the right words. But some mistakes were irreversible. And I had made sure this was one of them. The first time I saw Olivia in person, she was nothing short of perfection. Not the kind of manufactured beauty that came with Botox and expensive facials, but the kind of natural, effortless elegance that made other women feel like they would never be enough. She had the type of posture that exuded confidence, the type of presence that demanded attention without asking for it. She was the woman who had everything: power, status, wealth. And soon she would have nothing. Because I wasn't here to take her husband. I was here to take her life apart. Robert was unraveling. It was subtle at first. The way his hands trembled slightly when he poured his morning coffee. The way he checked his phone more obsessively, his shoulders stiffening whenever Olivia walked into the room. She hadn't confronted him again since that night at the dinner party. But the damage had already been done. The seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing, spreading through their marriage like a slow, silent disease. And I was the infection. The unseen force tightening its grip around his throat, watching him choke on his own lies. The affair became reckless after that. He stopped being careful. Stopped making excuses. Stopped pretending he wasn't drowning in me. Tell me you love me, I whispered one night, my body wrapped around his, slick with sweat, our limbs tangled in the sheets of yet another 5-star hotel bed. He let out a shaky breath. Ava. I moved, pressing my lips to his throat, feeling his pulse race. Say it. His grip tightened on my hips. You know I do. Say it. I insisted, my voice soft but firm. He exhaled, his control slipping completely. I love you. It was a lie. But he believed it. And that was all that mattered. Olivia wasn't stupid. She knew. Even if she hadn't caught him in the act, even if there was no smoking gun, no undeniable proof, she knew. And it was driving her insane. I could see it in the way she moved, the way she held herself. There was a new tension in her shoulders, a sharpness in her gaze that hadn't been there before. She had always been cold, always been composed. But now she was waiting, watching, hunting. She had stopped asking questions, stopped accusing him outright. And that was how I knew she was getting close to the truth. A woman like Olivia didn't ask for answers. She took them. Robert tried to act like nothing had changed, but I could hear it in his voice, the way it cracked when he spoke. She hasn't said anything, he told me one night, pacing the hotel room, running a hand through his graying hair. She's just different. Different how? I asked, lounging on the bed, pretending not to care even though I needed to know. His jaw clenched. She's watching me. Not arguing. Not accusing me. Just watching. I smiled, slow and secretive. That means she's planning something. He looked at me then, really looked at me, his eyes dark with something that almost resembled fear. Planning what? I sat up, pulling the sheet around my body, tilting my head as if I actually needed to think about it. Maybe she's getting ready to destroy you. He swallowed hard. And I could see it, the way the idea unsettled him. Good. Let him be afraid. Because he had no idea that I was the one holding the knife. The first real crack came a week later. Robert called me in the middle of the night, his voice tight, frantic. Ava, he breathed. I think she hired someone. I sat up in bed, feigning concern. What do you mean? I saw a car outside my office, he whispered. Same one was outside our house last night. He exhaled sharply. She's having me followed. Of course she was. I had expected her to. This was Olivia Langston. A woman who did not lose. A woman who built an empire alongside her husband and would not let it collapse over some 22-year-old fucking his brains out. She wasn't just going to take this lying down. She was going to fight. But what she didn't realize, what neither of them realized, was that I had already planned for this. She could follow him all she wanted. It wouldn't change what was coming. The next time we met, I was waiting for him in the hotel room, dressed in nothing but one of his shirts. It was all part of the illusion, the girlfriend fantasy, the thing that made him feel like this was more than just sex. Like it was real. He walked in, rubbing his face, sighing heavily as he dropped his briefcase on the floor. I waited for him to come to me. And he did, slowly like a man seeking refuge. I let him pull me against him, let him bury his face in my hair, let him exhale like he was safe here. Ava. His voice was rough, strained. I stroked his back, pretending to comfort him. I'm here. She knows, he murmured. She knows everything. I pulled back, just slightly. Then what are you going to do? His eyes met mine, and I saw it, the moment he cracked. I don't know, he admitted, voice hoarse. But I think she's trying to destroy me. I smiled. Because he was right. She was. And soon, I was going to help her do it. Chapter 5, The Wife's Revenge. Olivia Langston wasn't just a woman scorned. She was a woman on the warpath. And I was counting on it. Robert had no idea how much of a walking dead man he already was. He thought he could charm his way out of this, that a few soft apologies and a diamond bracelet would make Olivia drop it. That she would eventually move past the betrayal because that's what wives of powerful men were supposed to do. Forgive. Forget. Look the other way. But Olivia? She wasn't the type to look the other way. She was the type to burn it all to the ground. It started small. Subtle shifts in their marriage that most men wouldn't notice. But I did. Robert used to call me like clockwork after work, his voice rich with exhaustion, his fingers loosening his tie as he murmured, I need to see you tonight. But then one day the call didn't come. And the next day it didn't come again. Then when I texted him, miss me? He replied 2 hours later with, can't talk. I'll call later. I smirked. Olivia was tightening her leash. She wasn't confronting him anymore. She wasn't throwing accusations or storming out of the house. No, she was studying him, watching his every move, slowly reclaiming her power in a way that made him feel trapped, suffocated. And it was driving him insane. When we finally met days later, I could see the stress in his face. He looked exhausted, his usual confidence replaced with something closer to paranoia. His jaw was tight, his hand gripping his whiskey glass with a little too much force. She's fucking with me, he muttered. I tilted my head, feigning innocence. What do you mean? His lips curled, but there was no humor in it. She's acting like nothing's wrong. She still cooks dinner. Still asks me about my day. Still kisses me before I leave in the morning. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. But I know she knows. He set his drink down and leaned in, lowering his voice. I think she's planning something. I reached out, tracing my nails lightly along his wrist. Like what? He hesitated. Then, so quietly I almost didn't hear it, he whispered. She increased my life insurance policy last week. My stomach flipped. Oh, so that's the game Olivia wanted to play? I had underestimated her. And now, I was dying to see how far she was willing to take it. That weekend, Olivia made her first real move. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Robert was supposed to take me to the Hamptons. Just for the night, just for a little escape. But at exactly 10:32 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message. From Robert. Can't make it. Olivia wants to have a date night. I stared at the screen for a long moment. And then I laughed. Oh, this was delicious. Because Olivia wasn't trying to win him back. She was keeping him under surveillance. She was making him cancel plans. Making him choose her over me. Making him slowly suffocate in the walls of his own marriage until he begged for a way out. and soon I would offer him one. The next time we met, I made sure I was irresistible. Soft curls. A silk slip dress in the exact shade of red that made his eyes darken with hunger. Perfume. Not too strong, just enough to make him remember me every time he inhaled. But most of all, I was pissed. And I made sure he knew it. "You blew me off," I murmured, pouting slightly as I slid onto his lap in the hotel suite. He sighed, hands gripping my thighs. "You know I didn't have a choice." I ran my fingers through his hair, tugging lightly. "You always have a choice." He groaned, squeezing my hips. "Ava." I pulled back slightly, meeting his eyes. "What are you going to do?" His jaw clenched. "I don't know." I kissed his jaw. "Yes, you do." His breath hitched. And then the real question. "Do you still love her?" His grip tightened, and for the first time he hesitated. "I don't know," he admitted, voice hoarse. "Maybe I never did." That was all I needed. The final crack. The moment where doubt replaced loyalty. And now all I had to do was push. The next day, I sent Olivia a package. Nothing obvious. Nothing that could be traced back to me. Just a simple, sleek black box delivered to her doorstep. Inside, a silk scarf, a tube of red lipstick, and a single note. "You've lost him." I imagined her expression when she saw it. I imagined the way her fingers would shake as she held the note, the way her anger would simmer just beneath the surface. Because Olivia Langston didn't take losses lightly. And I was about to make sure she lost everything. That night, Robert called me, voice frantic. "Olivia's losing it," he said. "She's fuck." She threw a glass at me, Ava. I bit my lip, fighting back a smile. "Did she say why?" He exhaled. "She said she knows I'm still seeing you. She said she's going to ruin me. Take everything. The company, the house, the kids." Oh, this was even better than I expected. Because Olivia wasn't just trying to fix things anymore. She was ready to destroy him. And I was just getting started. Chapter 6, The Betrayal. Robert thought he was playing two sides. Balancing. Controlling. He thought he was the one making the choices. Thought he could juggle a wife and a mistress, keeping us both on tight leashes, ensuring neither of us strayed too far, never losing his grip on either. But the thing about men like Robert? They never realize when the leash is around their own neck. And I had been tightening it from the moment he first laid eyes on me. Olivia was unraveling, and I could feel it. It wasn't just the way Robert talked about her, the way he described the tightness in her jaw, the coldness in her eyes. It was the little things. The way she had stopped confronting him outright. The way she had started moving in silence, watching, waiting. That was when I knew she was done being his wife. Now, she was his executioner. And when the time came, I would hand her the blade myself. That week, I changed the game. Up until now, I had let Robert feel like he was the one making the moves. Like he was the one sneaking away, stealing moments with me, breaking the rules. But now I wanted him desperate. So I disappeared. No texts. No calls. No late-night whispers over the phone. I let him reach for me and find nothing. I wanted him to feel it. The absence. The longing. The sense of loss. And it worked. By day 3, he was frantic. "Where are you? Ava, are you mad at me? Ava, please just tell me what's wrong." And then, "Ava, I need to see you." That was the one. That was the moment I had been waiting for. I let him wait a little longer. And then, just when I knew he was close to losing his mind, I finally answered. "Come to me." Now, when he arrived, he looked like hell. Dark circles under his eyes, tension in his jaw, shoulders stiff like he had been walking through landmines all week. And I looked fucking perfect. Soft silk draped over my body, bare legs curled under me, hair cascading over my shoulders like I had barely tried, but still managed to look irresistible. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him, and just stood there staring at me, like he was trying to drink me in. "Why have you been ignoring me?" His voice was rough. I didn't answer right away. I let the silence stretch. Then, in the softest voice, I whispered, "I wanted to see how much you needed me." He exhaled, closing his eyes briefly like he was in pain. "More than I should," he admitted, his voice low. I smiled. "Then prove it." That night, I made sure he felt owned. I let him drown in me, let him forget everything but me. And when he was finally spent, when he was lying beside me, breathing heavily, tangled in the sheets like a man who had just sold his soul, I made my next move. I turned to him, running my fingers through his hair, and whispered, "Leave her." His body tensed immediately. "Ava." I pressed a finger to his lips. "Shh. Just listen." He swallowed. "I know she's making your life hell," I murmured. "I know you feel trapped. But you don't have to be. You can have me. You can be happy. His jaw clenched. Ava, it's not that simple. Yes, it is, I whispered. You just have to choose. His throat bobbed. He wanted to. I could see it. But men like Robert? They never make the right choice. Which is why I had already made it for him. The next morning, I sent Olivia another package. This time it wasn't a hint. It was proof. A flash drive. Encrypted files. Bank transactions. Hotel receipts. Every single lie. Every single dollar spent on me. Every single fucking betrayal. And a note. Ask him what he gave up for me. And then I waited. Robert called me that night, his voice shaking. She knows. I smirked, twirling a strand of hair around my finger. Knows what? He exhaled sharply. She confronted me. About everything. The money. The hotels. She said she has evidence. I hummed softly, playing dumb. That's weird. Ava, what the fuck did you do? I smiled, slow and satisfied. Nothing you wouldn't have done to me. Silence. And then, you set me up. There it was. The realization. The moment he finally understood. I had never been his. I had never been the naive, wide-eyed college girl who had fallen for his charm. I had been playing him from the start. And now he was ruined. The next morning, Olivia emptied their accounts. She cut off every card, froze every asset, locked him out of the company, and left him with nothing but a public scandal and a fucking mess. Robert tried to fight back, but he never stood a chance. Because Olivia was ruthless. And I had handed her the knife. Robert called me one last time. Why? His voice was hoarse, broken. I smiled, taking a slow sip of champagne as I lounged in my new penthouse. You know why? Silence. Then softly. My wife. You never wanted me. You wanted her. I set my glass down, tilting my head slightly. And I got her, didn't I? The line went dead. And I knew in that moment. Robert Langston was finished. Chapter 7, The Final Blow. There's a moment in every game where the winner is clear. The checkmate move. The final stroke of the knife. The moment when everything tilts, when there's no escaping the inevitable. For Robert Langston, that moment had already happened. He just hadn't accepted it yet. But he would. By the time I was done, he would feel every single mistake he had made. And then he would have to live with it. The morning after Olivia left him, I woke up in silk sheets that weren't his. A different hotel. A different city. A better life. I stretched slowly, reaching for my phone, checking my messages. The first was from an unknown number. You ruined him. I smiled. Olivia. I knew she would reach out eventually. She had been waiting to see how this would all play out, waiting to see if I was just a fling, a temporary distraction that would fade into nothing after she crushed him. But now she knew the truth. I wasn't a fling. I wasn't temporary. I wasn't some dumb, desperate sugar baby looking for a paycheck. I was the reason her husband lost everything. And that deserved acknowledgement. I texted back. You should be thanking me. I did what you never could. I ended him. The message stayed unread for hours. Then, finally, meet me. Face to face. I tilted my head, considering. Then I texted back. Time and place. Olivia chose a private club. Not one of those cheap, neon-soaked places where the rich played pretend. No, this was exclusivity at its finest. Dark wood. Crystal chandeliers. Staff that knew when to look away. The kind of place where powerful people came to negotiate their darkest secrets. I liked it. When I arrived, Olivia was already seated. She was calm. Too calm. The kind of stillness that came after the storm, when everything had already been destroyed and all that was left was the reckoning. I slid into the seat across from her, crossing my legs, watching her. She didn't speak at first. Just took a slow sip of her drink, eyes cold, calculating. Then, finally, why? One word. Sharp. Precise. Laced with just enough venom to let me know she wasn't here for games. I tilted my head, feigning innocence. Why what? Her fingers tightened around her glass. Why him? Why my husband? Why this? I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. You ruined my mother's life, I said, my voice soft but firm. You fired her. You destroyed her career. You took everything from her, and you didn't even blink. She didn't flinch. But I saw the way her lips pressed together. The way she remembered. You think I care about that? She asked. I smiled. No. But I think you care about what it cost you. Silence. A long, slow breath. Then, finally, you played me, she murmured. You used him to get to me. I met her gaze without hesitation. I used both of you. Her nails tapped against the table. A slow, rhythmic sound. And now what? I shrugged, sipping my drink. Now, I disappear. Her eyes narrowed. And you expect me to let you? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table, letting my voice drop into something deadly serious. You don't have a choice, Olivia. You got what you wanted. You have your revenge. You took everything from him. I did my part. I played my game. And now, we're even. She studied me for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Stay out of my sight, Ava. I smirked, standing. I'll be too rich to be seen. And with that I walked away. Robert called me 2 days later. His voice was hoarse, broken. You really did it, he said. I smiled, sitting on the balcony of my new apartment, looking out at the city skyline. I told you I would. He exhaled sharply. I lost everything. I rolled my eyes. You lost what you deserved to lose. You never loved me, he whispered. I laughed softly. No, Robert. I never did. Silence. Then. You're a monster. I smirked. And what does that make you? Click. He was gone. And just like that. So was I. The money was wired the next morning. $7 million. From an anonymous account. A final gift. A settlement. A bribe. Whatever you wanted to call it, I won. And Olivia? She made sure I stayed gone. No lawsuits. No threats. No messy retaliation. Because she knew. I had played my role. I had taken everything from him. And now I was free. 3 months later, I was in Paris. New name. New life. Drinking champagne on a rooftop, wearing a dress worth more than my old apartment. Watching as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the city in gold. And then, a familiar voice. You look expensive. I turned, meeting his eyes. Not Robert. Another one. Another billionaire. Another powerful man who thought he was the one hunting. I smiled, slow and knowing. That's because I am. Game on. The end.